Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And this is your low-key ghetto Bible study.
I laugh every time. Every time. Okay, so this week we're looking at Ruth Chapter 3.
Yep.
We're 3/4 through the book.
Yeah, just 4 chapters, yeah.
Okay. This is the point where we ask you to pause, to pray, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, so as usual, we're going to be looking at the chapter in portions. I forgot to write down how I split it, okay. But I think the first portion is like verses 1 to about 9. Okay. That's what I think it is. All right. So we have no context of how far after chapter 3 takes place. It just starts by telling us that one day Naomi is having a conversation with Ruth, and she tells her that Naomi needs to find Ruth a home where she'll be provided for. And then she proceeds to say that Boaz, whose fields and whose women Ruth has been working with, is a relative. And then she tells Ruth that on that night, the night of the day they're having this conversation, he's going to be at the threshing floor winnowing the barley. And I had to go and Google what that was. And basically it's a process of getting the grains off the shaft. Yeah. So that's what it was. And so she tells Ruth that she needs to go wash herself, put on perfume, put on her best outfit, and then she's going to go down to the threshing floor. But it's important that she doesn't let anyone see her. Right? Don't let Boaz know you're there. He's going to eat, he's going to drink, and then he's going to sleep. And Ruth needs to watch where he goes to lie down. Mark that spot in her head. And then when he's asleep, she's supposed to go and cover his feet and lie down at his feet. And Ruth's response was, whatever you say, that's what I'm going to do. All right? And that's exactly what happened. She did what Naomi said. And then we have a scene shift. So we fast forward to Boaz at the threshing floor. And he's eating and he's drinking and he's in a good mood. I guess it's the end of the harvest. There's a lot of celebration going on. And then he goes to sleep. And they said he was in a good mood when he goes to sleep. So he lies down. And Ruth looks at the spot, remembers it. And when she's sure he's asleep, she goes very quietly and covers his feet and lies down. And then in the middle of the night, something wakes Boaz up.
One of the versions I read says his feet touched her.
Yeah. Alright, but like I looked at the King James and the NIV, and nothing says, they don't say specifically, they just say something startled him, something woke him up, and he rolls over and he finds a woman lying at his feet. Yeah, and that's the end of that section. Cliffhanger. Yeah. So what were the things that stood out to you?
This chapter was what I was really talking about last week, about this blind trust that Ruth has for Naomi. This whole tradition culture thing was very sus to me. I would not be comfortable doing that. But Ruth is like, okay, Naomi's asking me to do it. I trust Naomi. I don't see her wanting to do anything, asking me to do anything that will harm me or my reputation. I'm gonna do what Naomi says. Yeah. And that trust, I know that it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah. It's been what we're talking about, the relationship aspect.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And it's just one of those amazing, like, you rarely see that kind of relationship, especially between two people who are not blood related.
Okay. Yeah. But like in just piggybacking off of your that point in particular, I also think there's an essence of bravery there as well. Because yes, she's trusting Naomi, trusting her advice, trusting her guidance, but like to actually carry it out, there's a level of bravery there as well.
That's
so I think,
true.
And
because
I think
it's the middle of the night. She's a young woman on her own in the middle of the night, and she's literally going to a place with a bunch of dudes. Yeah, that's true.
And I think that is like an element of who Ruth is, because I think even like back to chapter 1, where she leaves her family. That was brave. You know, that requires a lot of bravery. But my first point had to do with the very beginning of the chapter, which I thought was like, was it last chapter? Yeah, last chapter I made reference to like giving me Hallmark movie vibes, and I think that came back around in this chapter because Naomi says, "I need to find you a home," and then she proceeds to list a specific man. Right, so it went from, I think you should get remarried. This is the guy I want. You know? Like serious matchmaker vibes. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I found was very interesting. And then I think she was also very specific about how Ruth should prepare. She tells you wash, then you put on your perfume, then you put on your best outfit. I thought that was very interesting that there were such clear distinctions to not just what she should do when she gets there, but how she should prepare. And so I was wondering, like, is this a custom? Is this part of the culture? And like, I think
Naomi just know Boaz very well.
yeah. And like, that's one of the points I have at the end, right? Okay. But I think one of the questions I was asking is that, like, if like Naomi was very particular about not wanting Boaz to know Ruth was there at the beginning. So I'm like, so why she had a doll up if you don't want to see her or know she's there? Like, what is the specifics of that? But I thought that was a very very interesting thing. And like my another point I have, it ties into the thing that it was like a level of obedience and respect she showed towards Naomi in her response to what Naomi was asking her to do. And I guess like exactly as you were saying, it was a result of relationship and thing. And I'm curious as to if she understood the implications of what Naomi was asking her to do.
Like, there's a version I read that Naomi tells her that Boaz is eligible to redeem her widowhood. So I don't know. I think she must have known going into it that, okay, like the possible outcome, like down the line, but not necessarily that night.
Okay. Yeah. You have anything else?
But then there's trust. As usual, my notes are a mess. Yeah. I thought you were going to make that point. I don't know if it's maybe in your later ones, but we had a conversation. And you were saying that Naomi is being provided for by Ruth. But she's like, let us have a switch in the sense, let me do this thing for you so that you can be provided for. And you shouldn't have to be the provider anymore. Let me put you in a position where somebody can provide for you.
And I think that, like, I remember us having that conversation. I didn't remember it when I was making my notes. And I think that had a lot to do with her choice of husband, because like based on how he's been treating Ruth, based on how he's been looking out for them, there's every indicator that he will be a good provider, not just for Ruth but for Naomi as well,
because he's already been doing the job essentially.
Let's just give him the job title.
Yes, definitely.
My final point had to do with like where our section end, and I was like, I cannot imagine, right, Boaz's shock in rolling over and discovering a woman lying at his feet. Like, bruh, yeah. Like, it to me that was I make a point of this again in the second section, because I just think it's very interesting. Like, you go to sleep, and I think it's the Bible specifies that he went to sleep at the end of the far end of the field of the threshing floor, right? At the far end of the grain pile. So he may have been like, everybody else may have been sleeping on the other side, and he's here by himself. And not only that, he's there sleeping with a bunch of men, right?
So why something touching his foot? And
so I have no words. I just can't imagine. And I was just thinking about myself about sometimes I wake up and there's a cat lying at my feet, right? And that is enough to startle me, just feeling that. So I can't imagine waking up and there's a whole human being somewhere, like, you know, close enough to touch me.
I'm sorry, I would have woken up the whole I would have woken up the whole thing. the surprise
Yeah.
would have woken up the whole.
That's what I speak about in the second section.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. You have anything else?
No, not
Okay.
on this section.
Alright, so let's move on. So in our second section, which is I think about from verse 10-ish to the end of the chapter, Boaz wakes up, startled, find a woman at his feet, and his first question is, "Who are you?"
Mm.
Right? And Ruth identifies herself, and then she asks him to spread the edge of his garment over her. And I was like, what is the significance of that? And basically, the internet is saying that was a marriage proposal.
Oh, wow.
That was a request for marriage, basically.
Okay.
So, and then she says, because he is a guardian redeemer. I also had to Google, like, what specifically that is that. And they think that it is a family member of influence who would have had the ability to repurchase any family land that would have been sold off or auctioned, right?
Okay.
Because apparently that's a thing that used to happen. Like, as the husband dies, and then family land may be sold and auctioned. And that's in order to provide for the widow and whatever. So this is an individual who would have been in a position to buy back the family land to keep it under the dead husband's name, potentially. And, well, okay, let's go. So Boaz responds with a blessing on Ruth, right? And he states that the kindness she's currently showing with this action is greater than anything she had done before, right? And he commends her for not pursuing a younger man, which again points us to the fact that he's an older man, right? He's a more mature man. And he assures her that he would do everything she asked, and he went on to say that all the people knew she was a woman of noble character, which is something I thought was interesting for him to say there. Then he proceeds to tell her that, however, there was a relative who was more closely related who would have the first pick in being the guardian redeemer. So Boaz advises Ruth to stay the night and that he would go to the relative in the morning. If this relative wasn't interested, then he, Boaz, would be the guardian redeemer. So she stayed until morning, and then she left while it was still too dark for her to be recognized. And he had her take the shawl she was wearing off, and he filled it with, I think, six portions of barley. I don't know what the exact quantity of portion would have been. And she went home. And when she got home, obviously, matchmaker Naomi was waiting to find out what had happened. And Ruth told her everything Boaz had said. And he gave her the barley and Boaz had given her, and telling her that Boaz had said, "Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed." Again, provider. And Naomi tells Ruth to wait and see what happens, because she's sure that Boaz will not let the day end without having everything settled. And that's the end of Ruth Chapter 3. Now, my notes start where my what stands out to me here starts exactly where the last one ends. Right? Talking about Boaz waking up to find a woman at his feet. And what like you were saying, you would have woken everybody up. And I was thinking, as startled as Boaz was, he had the presence of mind to identify the woman first.
Now, this is what my thoughts were. Okay, to me, this says something about Boaz. He asks, "Who are you?"
Mm-hmm.
And that meant one of two things. Either there's so many women he's involved with that he don't know which one it is, or he's not accustomed to having women at the threshing floor. And that's the vibe you get later on. And so that gives us, because he's a more mature man, right? That gives you even more respect for him. That he, like, I feel like at any point in time in history, men operated under different rules than women. And so his reputation would not have been so greatly tarnished if there were women at the threshing floor. But he is very careful not to have that kind of reputation. And once again, I'm understanding why Boaz is the Proverbs 31 women of men.
But I was also thinking that have I lost a thought?
Oh no,
I feel like I lost a thought. What was I thinking?
You were asking that you were talking about how he asked who she is. He asked her to identify herself.
Oh, I think part of that, because Naomi tells Ruth to uncover his feet and lay at his feet, which I think might have had some significance.
Oh, And it could be could be thinking Ruth wouldn't know, like,
not just like who is this woman that is doing whatever this implies.
oh, okay.
Right? And I think that would have further dictated his response.
Okay.
So I think it was important for him to identify who it was first.
Okay.
And before he wakes everybody up, and then everybody discovers there's a woman lying at his feet, and then there's just problems. So I think that was I think it was a level of wisdom and maturity that we see in Boaz, right throughout. Yeah. I this was a note, but I said it while I was going through the summary, that I was curious about the significance of her asking him to spread the edge of a garment, and they were saying it was a marriage request, a marriage proposal, more or less. Yeah.
And I think they say that in the Bible as well, that her asking him for those things, he immediately knows that Naomi has sent her, and that's how he can attribute her it as kindness, what she's doing, because he knows that she's not familiar with their customs. This is instructions she's gotten from Naomi, and she's just obeying. And I think that's another reminder of Ruth's I guess loyalty, because like he says, she had options. She's a beautiful young woman. She's yes, not just beauty, but she's young, so she could have there's some versions that say that not only could she have opted for a younger man, she could have opted for a richer man as well. And so he's just even more impressed with her and her sacrifice, I guess he sees it as.
Because I think by going with the guardian redeemer, what she was in part doing is maintaining her dead husband's line and restoring his property
Lineage.
and his lineage. Because I think I not in relation to this study, but I think I was seeing somewhere that if the husband dies and the wife remarries either to a brother or a relative, then the first son,
it's technically
the dead husband's heir, right? And so I think, and like if we're looking at it in that context, then it means that into next chapter, the descendant becomes either Mahlon or, I'm not sure if it's Mahlon or Kilion's.
Yeah, we don't know which one she was married to.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting thing to note. And it also, gives us a new respect for Boaz, because here he is willing to
it's like the stepfathers that take care of previous children from previous relationships. Yeah.
And so he's willing to not necessarily lessen his lineage, but because let's say they only have one son.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I guess he's been without an heir for like his whole life.
So
like
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But it makes me curious about him and why he's been single. If Ruth just shows up and is like, marry me, and he's like, sure. Yeah. So that makes me curious.
I'm dying, right? Because I'm just looking back at my note about the spreading of the edge of his garment as the marriage proposal. I should maybe try that. Ideas, ladies, an option for you. And get him to spread the edge of his garment over you.
Oh my God.
Marriage proposal. Don't need a ring, just a garment. I think my next point is that Boaz had Ruth leave before she could be recognized, and it makes me think that what Naomi asked her to do was a custom, but in this setting it was still a little sketchy. Because she didn't want when Ruth got there, she didn't want Ruth to be seen. When she's leaving, Boaz doesn't want her to be seen.
I guess it's in the sense that so let's say before she speaks to Boaz, she's seen, and then Boaz is like, no, I can't do this. Her reputation might be affected. And then in the sense where Boaz, she's leaving, and Boaz goes to the other guy, and he's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll marry Ruth. it could her reputation could still be affected having been at Boaz's threshing floor. So
at his feet.
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of nothing is sealed, nothing is no contracts have been signed yet. Let's maintain her reputation in the meantime.
Still sketch.
Yeah.
Mother-in-law Naomi, you sketchy.
Yeah.
And that ties into that was like my next point is that Naomi, the eager matchmaker, was waiting. She was waiting. Like,
but even before that, we get there. He has her stay, which I think that is also a reminder of his wisdom and his desire to protect her, because her walking the streets at that hour is not safe.
Yeah.
So he has her stay until it's safe for her to is light enough for her to safely get home, but still she can protect her reputation. So,
and especially now that the shawl she might have been able to use to cover her face is filled with barley.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have Boaz proved his ability to be a good provider, sending the barley home. He's like, yeah, I can do this.
My thing is that he understands when it is appropriate to give handouts, gifts.
Okay, yeah. Like you just asked me to marry you. I don't have a ring on hand. Here's some barley.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think he was like, here we are in a situation where you have literally just asked me to be your provider. I will provide. Yeah. My final point is that we get an idea of who Boaz is in Naomi's idea of Boaz, in her saying that he's not going to let the day end before getting this settled.
Okay.
So I think and I think in chapter 4 we find out that she was right. But I think that's like, he's a man of his word. He gets things done. He does what he has to do. The important things are not going to be delayed, which is the type of man you want to marry, you know? So.
But what I also find interesting is that he knows he's minding his business. He knows that he's not the first in line to redeem Ruth, and I find that interesting. Is it just that everybody knew their family so well and how it worked, or like the man has thought about this?
Yeah. I think it's possible that it has been something he's been thinking about, because we see him going over and above and beyond, to help them out while she's working in the field and that type of stuff. And so he's concerned about the two of them and their well-being. And I think there may have been things that we don't get in the story in terms of how he's looking out for them. And so I think, especially with the fact that they're now both widows, he may have been processing one of them will need to get remarried. And he was like, and if I have to choose, it's probably going to be Ruth. But I think this is something he may have been very well processing as well.
Okay.
And I think that's partially evident with how quickly he responds. There's nothing to think about. He's like, I've been waiting. Yeah. You have anything else?
No, that's everything.
All right. So, did you have any lessons about God? Did this chapter give you anything about God?
That one was difficult. It brought me back to the Esther situation where it's just that God, at the base of all of this, is God providing for his people. That is what I'm seeing, and he's going to use other people to do it a lot of the time. It's not always will bread fall out of the sky. Sometimes
it won't always be manna.
Right.
Sometimes
He'll give you a man.
It's not. It won't always be manna. Sometimes it's a man. I like that. It's a barley field.
Yes.
You make the bread yourself. Yeah, that's interesting. I think for me it's still the God using other people, but it was not necessarily in providing like physical material things. I think it was sometimes God will use our elders and the people around us to guide us. I think both Naomi and Boaz both her elders and they both provide guidance for Ruth throughout the book. And I think we need to. This is leaning into the how I should live, so I won't go further.
I have that as how we should live.
But my second point is that, and this kind of slips into. I should have probably left this for chapter 4, but it is that God can. I will just say it again next week.
Yeah.
God can chart a path from our bitterness to beauty if we trust Him.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think we're already seeing
the beauty.
A turn of the tides, especially in Naomi's life, because she's come in chapter 1 or chapter 1. She comes back saying, "My name is no longer Naomi; it's Mara. God has dealt bitterly with me." And here in chapter 3, we see her playing matchmaker and being excited. So I think there's already been a change of turn of tides for her. Yes. I think she's excited about life again, and I think chapter 4 we get the fullness of that. Yes. So I will bring this point back for chapter 4. I think I'll bring this point back for chapter 4. Okay, so what are you applying to your life going forward?
There are two things. I see a lesson from Naomi in the sense that in our relationships, we shouldn't always be the takers.
Okay.
And I know that for Ruth to love Naomi like that, she would have been a giver, and in the beginning of their relationship, but it's gone to the point where she's on the receiving end, and in these kinds of relationships, it's about balance, and it's about giving and taking, and so Naomi finds a way to switch it and be the giver again, and so that's something I want to pay attention to. That in my friendships, in my relationships, with family and everybody, that I find ways to contribute, and not just to meet my own needs.
Find the balance.
Right. Yes. And then your note about the elders, I was thinking that, they've been around for longer than we have. They've seen life, they've experienced things, they've learned things, and if we're willing to listen to them, if we're willing to learn from them, we could get set. We could get set.
I thought you were going to say we could get set up. They can play matchmaker.
Yeah, that
somebody
too.
say arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Arranged marriage.
Yeah, so.
I think I have the same point, but I didn't use elders. I used spiritually more mature people.
Ah, okay.
So I was like,
sense.
I need to trust the guidance and wisdom of the more spiritually mature people around me.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes
age is
not necessarily only. It's not that it's not a factor. Because I think what you're saying is very valid in terms of them having been around more and having seen more of life is very, very valid. But I think also in the context of a spiritual walk with God and spiritual growth, there are people who may be my age or possibly even younger who may be at a different place in their spiritual walk, and I can always learn from them, and I can always get good advice and listen to their wisdom. So I think that's it's multifaceted. I said, like Boaz, I need to do important things without delay. Bye procrastination. Right? I need to get it done. I need to have it settled. When a woman proposes to me, I need to have it settled before the end of the day. Okay, no, but like seriously, I struggle very seriously with procrastination, and we've been working through it. We've been talking about looking into why are we procrastinating on certain things, right. And I think sometimes acknowledging how important and maybe possibly how urgent something is can help fuel us in the right direction. It don't always work, I can say that for a fact. But I think sometimes it could give us like, this is something that's important to me. This is something that's urgent. I can give myself a packet of tea time when I'm finished, so I can go ahead and do it. That's how I function sometimes. I promise myself a packet of tea time biscuits. So that's just me.
But I was thinking as well that in his case, it wasn't just about him, and I think that could help us if we haven't gone to the place yet where something being important for us and being necessary for our well-being is we procrastinated. We could rephrase it as it being important for somebody else we care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like our CSEC videos.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think my final point is that Ruth's bravery is something I need to pray for. I'm a coward. Like I make there's no hesitation about saying that. But I think with God's help, and like I think this is a side conversation we're going to record in a while where we're talking about Jabez and his prayer for God to change the
trajectory of his life. Yeah.
Right, so it doesn't match up with the meaning of his name. I think that I can trust God to make me brave enough so that I can stop calling myself a coward.
So the angel will show up, TJ, mighty woman of valor. Yes.
I don't know. I don't know what about, but baby steps. We gonna get there. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, okay. I'm all out of points.
So, I think that's it for Ruth Chapter 3. I'm excited to see what Ruth Chapter 4 has for us. And then what we've decided to do next is head into Genesis. And we're going to be looking at Abraham to Joseph.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. It'll be a long
journey.
Yeah. journey.
But I think it would be interesting. I think there's lots to pick up from the patriarchs of Israel.
Yes, definitely.
And great men of valor. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Alright, so this has been What Shall We Say to These Things? I'm MJ.
I'm TJ.
And until next time,
we're out.